the words that came out of her mouth changed my life to this day. This is probably the most important words I've ever heard in my life. Because if it wasn't for these words, I probably wouldn't be here.
Okay, we're gonna jump right into housekeeping. If you're listening, rate and subscribe. Share it with people. We want to connect with you, and I say that all the time, but you know, that's what we're doing here. It's a genuine thing happening here. It's not just like a talk show, you know. So yeah, if you're listening, share with people. If you're listening, you can also watch on Big Mood TV on YouTube. You know, we have our video is tight. You can follow me at Eric_Big Mood Coach. And yeah, we're gonna jump right the fuck in. So today we have a homeboy, just the homie, who I'll say this will be the introduction. We have cool conversations every time we talk, and he's a very thoughtful dude. And I'm looking forward to just doing the conversations that we normally have, but over a microphone. So we have my boy Jeremiah here. What's up, dude?
What's up? Hey everybody, I'm Jeremiah. Thanks for having me on here, Eric.
Yeah,
it's
man.
Nice to see you, bro.
Yeah, man.
And we have great conversations. And you know, honestly, I watched a couple of them. I didn't want to just come on here and just like give some spill of my story or anything like that. I just figured we just kind of come in and chit chat, you know, get a little bit of my background and maybe start it off that way or whatever may happen. But then when we get to certain points, I definitely want feedback. I don't just want to sit here and just like yap my story
just monologue.
You know what I mean?
So let's do that. Let's give people, so we'll have your story told in to the extent that you want to tell it, just to provide context of like where you come from, and where, you know, the philosophy that you kind of live by comes from, and then we'll align on how we connect in philosophy.
Yeah, because I think that's more the issue. I think you have me here more for the way that I think, than my actual story.
Definitely, that is 100% true.
Right, because my actual story, I mean, honestly, it's not that interesting. It's pretty stereotypical. We'll start with a little like family origin.
Yeah.
Okay, so my parents were essentially hippies. At least my dad was. My mom was a little bit young to be a traditional hippie, and my dad went to the Vietnam War and came back, and he had long hair, and he was just, you know, a hippie guy. They were from Alabama. My grandfather was a sheriff's deputy in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And when they started dating, he was about 7 years older than my mom. And my mom was in her late teens, just about to turn 20. My dad was in his mid-20s, and there definitely wasn't no dirty hippie going to date my mom, you know, the deputy sheriff. So now a lot of this is kind of hearsay. Little stories I picked up from my uncle, from my aunt, from my mother. And who knows how much of it is actually 100% what really happened. So apparently my grandfather was going to hunt down my dad and kill him.
Okay. Because
that's what they did back then. And and they might still do that some places. I don't know, but not really too much here in San Diego. So they ran away to California.
Okay.
So it's really like kind of a stereotypical Southern California type. I'm 44 years old, so a lot born in the 70s. I think a lot of guys my age, you know,
I can't believe you're 44. That trips me out. You're forever young.
All of 44.
You're forever young, bro. You're a timeless human being.
There's like so much peace that comes with getting older.
Yeah.
There really is. There's just so much of like the fight every year that goes by. I have to fight a little bit less.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
I can let go a little bit more. I can just be a little freer.
Yeah.
You know, and not worry about what they're thinking about me as much. I mean, you remember how much you cared about what people thought about you when you were 13?
Yeah, when you were 13. I'm 31 and I still really care.
But you remember when you were 13, how much you cared? Yeah. You don't care that much anymore, right?
Less.
Yeah.
I still care, but less.
You care, but less. Now, so when you're 40, you're like now you care even less. You know, like that's been my experience so far anyway. I can't speak for everybody. This is just my experience here.
Yeah. So parents in Southern California.
Yeah, parents in Southern California, they're drug addicts, alcoholics, doing heroin, everything, you name
Yeah.
it. They're just trash cans. I was born here, and shortly after they moved out here. My mom left my dad, and there's a couple of like correlating stories in there. There's one that comes from my uncle. There's one that my mom told me,
Yeah.
but there's just a lot of dysfunction involved. But that dysfunction goes way back.
Yeah.
You see, my grandfather, before he was a deputy sheriff, he was a tax man.
Okay.
And so what he was doing was busting up the stills, and then he'd steal the alcohol and take it home.
Gotcha.
And him and my grandmother would drink. They would end up getting an argument. It'd get violent. Of course, he's a deputy. He's in law enforcement, so
he never got
in any trouble. And apparently, he was adopted. Now, this is all stuff coming from like his actual mother got pregnant as a teenager, had him, and gave him to her sister, I believe.
Wow.
And so it's kind of it goes back like it didn't just. This stuff is there, and it's rooted and it's deep. And so my mother, I can tell you from her standpoint, the reason she went the way she did so hard is because she was tired of seeing the hypocrisy within it, where everything looks so good from the outside. The dad, he's a cop, the housewife mother, everything's perfect, white picket fence, and then go home at night and they're getting in a drunken fist fight over dinner.
Yeah.
And putting out cigarettes on the dinner plate.
Oh shit.
And just gnarly dysfunction. And so she went off with just kind of the other end, just to complete dysfunction, and just like not even putting on a show.
Yeah.
And so, I wasn't born into necessarily what would be considered the best of circumstances.
Yeah.
A lot of poverty, a lot of violence, a lot of dysfunction. From my earliest recollection, I remember seeing drugs around consistently, and it, and then it started to register. I think that there's, I think up to a certain age, there's kind of, we're developing awareness. Like you see a baby, and and first he become aware of you, and becomes aware, and then he becomes aware of your nose, and then he becomes aware of his nose.
Yeah.
And he's starting to develop this sense of self.
Yeah.
And then he finds his feet.
Yeah.
And his thumbs. And then before you know it, he's like recognizing like, oh, I'm an individual.
Yeah.
And then as time goes on, it's like that sense of self becomes kind of put in there. And I don't know. I was just thinking about this kind of thing the other day. It's like, at a certain point in my life, maybe I was like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there, where I had this sense of identity. And ever since that point, I've done everything I can to try to be something else.
Yeah.
Ever since I realized that what I was not enough.
Was not enough. Yeah.
And I had to have more money.
Yeah.
And I had to have more women.
Yeah.
And I had to have more, and I had to be better accepted and better liked. And I really cared about what everybody thought about me.
Yeah.
And I had to be the cool guy or the tough guy or whatever it may be. And I had to, I fought tooth and nail not to be that person who I was.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cause of a lot of my uncomfort.
Yeah.
I think that's the cause of a lot of uncomfort that we see in this world.
That was mine as well. I was, my friend Karen would say something in the room was not the same. And that thing was always me. The thing was always me that wasn't like everybody else. And so much of my life was trying to figure out, like, how can I be in this space? How can I show up in this space and be accepted in this space or in this space or in this space? And there's a level of that being in business and being a person of color and being this and being that. Is I still find myself, but it gets less and less. And I get more secure in like, okay, this is who the fuck I am. I'm more secure about who the fuck I am today than I've ever been, in my entire life. Way more than like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was a kid, But anyway, keep going.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I like to hear that you identify with that.
Yeah.
That it makes sense to you.
It makes perfect sense.
That just popped in my head the other day, and I didn't know if it made sense to anybody.
It makes perfect sense. It makes
sense to me.
Yeah.
And and so I was I was kind of just given free reign. You know, there was never really any kind of like, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, I believe my mother loved me. I just don't think she really knew any better. I think she did the best she could with what she had, with where she came from.
Yeah.
You know, but I was given complete free reign. I remember being, you know, when it comes to drugs, there was like a turning point in my life with drugs and alcohol where I was in like 4th grade and I had taken the day off school because I didn't have to like get sick. I just told mom
Yeah.
I wasn't going. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I wasn't going. And I was watching MTV and the music video for Girls, Girls, Girls came on. And they're in
Okay.
the strip club
Yeah.
and he pulls out the switchblade, he stabs it in the fucking bar.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah,
ever
yeah.
seen that.
The Jay-Z Girls,
No,
Girls?
no,
Which
Motley
one?
Crue.
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue,
so
okay. It's
different
fucking-
one for me.
Okay. And yeah, so yeah, aging myself. So and Tommy Lee pulls out the switchblade, or maybe it was Nikki Sixx, one of the guys from Motley Crue, and like stabs it in the bar. And
Okay.
it was just like they're sitting there drinking and they're riding Harleys and
Yeah.
got all the hot chicks. And then it was that same year that the DARE program came into my classroom.
Gotcha.
And I remember at the end of that DARE program, they said something to the effect like, if you know anybody who does drugs, just let us know so we could help them.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm just like, no way. Like, I'm not a narc.
Yeah.
Like, I know better at 9 years old. And I know a lot of people who do drugs, all my mom's friends.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is when my bicycle got stolen, you know, Uncle Bobby got it back for me.
Yeah.
Not the cops.
Yeah.
And Uncle Bobby was a heroin addict. There's no way I'm throwing Uncle Bobby under the bus. I
Yeah.
love Uncle Bobby.
Yeah.
And on top of that, with those guys in that music video at the strip club with the beers and that switchblade, that looked way cooler and way more fun. You know, and I kind of made a decision right then and there which way I was going.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going to be this straight square guy. This just
Yeah.
wasn't part of my path.
Definitely.
And I went home shortly after that. I don't know if it was that same day or a couple days later. And I stole a joint out of my mom's purse. And me and this other little kid, we went and smoked it,
Yeah.
kind of in a little middle way and
Yeah.
in between a couple of buildings. And I don't know what it really did to me then, but what it really did for me, I don't remember how I felt right then,
Yeah.
but I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
I knew what kind of way I was going. The cork was off the bottle,
Yep.
and it was on.
Yeah. I feel that, man.
Yeah.
That's how mine was as well. It was, I knew once it started, this is it. Like I've heard my friends say, this is the ticket, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like for me. I was like, this is it, dude. And I knew which way I was going. I was fully ready to embody all of that, you know?
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So, you know, I started off really young. Me and this buddy of mine at like 12 years old. So in my neighborhood, I grew up in a very poor inland Southern California area. And there was a lot of criminals, and everybody had like a dad in jail or their
Yeah.
mom was in prison or both parents were in prison. And
Fuck.
I had this one buddy, both parents were in prison, and he lived with his brother who sold pot.
Yeah.
And so every morning before school, he would sneak in that bag and steal a little fistful and bring it to the bus stop. And
Yeah.
so we started just smoking weed every day,
Yeah.
things like that. And remember, I told you, like, I didn't really have much structure in my life
Yeah.
or any kind of boundaries, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the time I was like 14, I was just out.
Yeah.
You know, I was just kind of doing my own thing. I'd come home if I wanted to. I might stay gone for weeks at a time,
Yeah.
month at a time, just kind of off and running. And it wasn't long after that. So, I mean, I was pretty stereotypical. You know,
Yeah.
little skater kid, listen to punk
Yeah.
rock. I mean, pretty much
Yeah.
what you imagine, like
Yeah.
somebody growing up in that era
Yeah.
was kind of like.
And what part of Southern California? In San Diego?
No, I grew up in Redlands, which is out by
Gotcha.
San
I think-
Bernardino and
yeah,
Riverside
I know
area.
exactly where it is.
Yeah, so that's my hometown.
yeah.
Actually, a little area just sits right next to Redlands called Mentone Beach.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so back in the day, Mentone Beach was like a little biker community, is what it
Gotcha.
was. Very small little area, about 3 square miles, and there was like one main road, and there was no police department.
Wow.
So the police would come through back then. Now things have changed.
Yeah.
They built a high school there, so that changed things. But back then there was no high school, and the cops would come through twice a day.
Wow.
They'd come through right around 7:30 in the morning, and there'd be one cop car, and he'd come down the hill, and he'd cruise the main drag. They'd go back up the hill, and then they'd go back to the station.
Yeah.
And there was 10 miles away.
Yeah.
And then he'd be followed by backup.
Yeah.
And so it'd be that one. And then once around 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, you'd get that same thing. And then the rest of the time, the town was ours.
Open. Yeah.
Open. Do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, as far as anything.
Yeah.
It was just on. It was just on and going.
It's crazy.
And so I grew up pretty stereotypical. You know, not too different, not too much out of the ordinary. You know, when I was really young, I was a chubby kid. I grew, you know, at 14, I grew out of it.
Yeah.
And didn't really have any issues there. But so, yeah, so when I was 14, I spent an entire summer. I didn't come home until the day, like somebody's like,
didn't show up.
Somebody had mentioned that, like, hey, school's going to start next week. And I went back home.
Yeah.
And during that whole time, so I'm 14 years old and I'm hanging out in like Motel 6s with guys who just got out of prison.
Yeah.
Like hanging out with just all these gnarly dudes. And it was just a crazy summer. We were doing a lot of meth.
Yeah.
I had guns put to the back of my head by some bikers on like a bad drug deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they just went it was just going.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I showed up, I'd go back to school the next summer. And at this point I started selling drugs because everybody at the school knew me.
Yeah.
And I kind of rode that middle of the road where like I hung out with kind of a lot of the preppier, more popular kids, but then I had like my other side of life at home and everybody knew that, you know, I was the guy, but then they felt comfortable with me. So I probably sold like, you know, half my junior high school class their first bag of weed.
Yeah.
You know, because they trust me.
They trust you and you're the guy.
Yeah, I'm the guy. And then it progressed into other drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
And I had a blast in high school.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
What with my years, like my high school years, if I'm being completely honest, it was tons of fun. I had a whole different version of that. New York City nightlife at 16, you know, Pacha and like the electronic scene. And I was living it, you know, doing coke off girls' bodies. And there was parts of it that were like rock star fun. But now in retrospect, like I think of like how dark I felt, how uncomfortable I felt, and how much it might have been fun, but why I needed to do that, and how it hurt my family, man. My family watched me do that. And it was like in my own selfish bubble, fucking time of my life, right? Like no responsibilities. I dropped out of school by the time I was in 10th grade. Like, you know, no responsibilities, selling drugs and partying every day. Fun for me, torture for my family, my family, you know? So now I now that my homeboys live here, we joke about it with reverence. We speak about it with, you know, some sort of levity, but man, like, so for you, was there an underlying feeling of like, did that discomfort go away and it not show its head again? Or were you,
oh no,
how were you feeling internally?
I always had something to prove.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always had, cause I was, you know, this kid who grew up really poor, chubby kid, you know, wasn't really a part of trying to hang out with like these preppier, better off kids. And I was able to. And then once I, you know, thinned out, the girls liked me and everything, but I was always still in that. Like I said, I think that sense of self came when I was 5 or 6. And ever since then, that really hasn't changed. I still haven't been good enough. I still had to do this or that or achieve this. And I was at that point. And I always had something to prove.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit different. So it sounds like you partied. See, I was about the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was always about making money, man. When we were so I went to school to sell drugs.
Yeah.
And that's really the only reason I would go.
Yeah.
And we had an open campus in a parking lot. And I'd actually keep my drugs in one of the girls' cars in the parking lot. And then I'd go out, I'd refill in between classes. And then I'd go into my class and I'd get rid of what I had to get rid of and go back out to the car and re-up what I needed for the next period. And so I was so in high school, we were making runs up north to Humboldt to get weed.
Yeah.
to San Francisco, we would go to Haight Nash.
Yeah.
And a van would pull up and dip us sheets of acid right there.
Wow.
And we'd bring it back down to Redlands and we'd sell it. And we
Yeah.
even started smuggling steroids from Tijuana
From DJ.
to sell those to like the jocks at
Yeah.
school. We were just hustling.
Yeah,
Whatever we could
hustling.
do to make a buck, then
Yeah.
we'd turn it over and buy some other drugs. And
Yeah.
and before you know it, I wasn't even out of high school yet. I'm running like red phosphorus from going up to Long Beach to buy red phosphorus, 55-gallon barrels, and bringing it down here and distributing to a bunch of biker clubs.
Yeah.
So they can go out and cook their meth back in the day.
Yeah.
And
Wild.
oh man, we had this great hustle. So I had
Yeah.
this one homeboy, and his mom was a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we started doing is we started finding the houses that were vacant.
Yeah.
And we'd get a keg and we'd get a band or a DJ,
Yep,
make
yep.
up flyers at the school,
Yeah.
and throw a party.
We did the same thing.
Yeah.
We chill at abandoned houses and vacated houses and fucking party, dude. For us, it was ecstasy.
Mhm.
Like from 2005 to 2009 was just constant. And this is old ecstasy pressed pills. This is
Right.
this is before Molly. This is like the hard drug shit. And we would go to abandoned houses and just fucking rage. Sometimes with just like 6 of us, and sometimes with like 40 of us, you know. And we would just fucking trip out, man. So let me ask you, when was the turning point? Like what? Because for me, it's a very linear path for me. In like fun, less fun, dark. So when did yours go from less fun to dark?
Well, see, it's always kind of a roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
because there'd be the highs and the lows, and there was always some kind of drama. When you're
Yeah.
in the drug
Yeah,
scene,
it's
I
the
mean, there's
drama.
always just
Always something.
something popping off.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I
always
mean?
something.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of little girls. You know, it's like just silly.
Yeah.
And so there's always the drama, and there's always, and I never felt, like I said, I never felt good enough. I mean, I definitely had dark areas during that time, but overall, honestly,
It's pretty good.
it was pretty fun. And even the dark times have been good because
Yeah.
I've been given a life beyond anything I deserve.
Yeah.
I really
definitely.
have. I've just been set in this spot, and it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with me. I really believe that, it's just kind of predestined.
Yeah.
So after high school, I got really lucky. I ended up getting a job as like a bus boy at a bar.
Okay.
And so I was this 18-year-old like little bus boy. And when I turned 21, they moved me behind the bar.
Yeah.
And I was like that young kid bartending,
Yeah.
having a blast. All the girls would, are you even old enough to be back there?
Yeah,
And things
yeah.
like that. And it was just a kind of, the party kept progressing. I had given up the hard drugs at this point. So when I
Yeah.
got into the bar scene, it was a different scene than the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So like nobody did hard drugs. And when I say
Yeah.
hard drugs, what I really mean is methamphetamine and heroin.
Yeah.
Cocaine doesn't really count.
Doesn't-
That's
doesn't
not a
really
hard
count.
drug,
No,
right?
no, no.
Like
The big two.
yeah.
We're talking about the big two.
right. Mushrooms is natural. That's not even a drug.
That's not even a drug. That's medicine.
Yeah. So when I say hard drugs, I really just mean meth and heroin.
Yeah.
And I never really got into crack. That just wasn't around the
Nah,
scene.
that wasn't my shit either.
Yeah, it just wasn't in the scene. It wasn't, So, but we partied, and so I kind of blended into that, and the longer I did that, the less drugs became a part of my life, and the more alcohol became a part of my life.
Gotcha.
And it just became like the mainstay. And I
Gotcha.
avoided trouble for a few years because during this period of throughout that high school and junior high, I got brought home by the cops the first time when I think I was 11 years old.
Uh-huh.
And then got arrested. I think the first time I actually went to court, I was around 13 or 14. And since that time, I was at least on paperwork, if not sitting inside of a jail,
Yeah.
up until I was 26.
Wow.
Yeah.
On probation or something.
Something was
Yeah.
going on at from that first court appearance till then, whether I was on probation or something.
Yeah.
And so I avoided trouble for a few years.
Yeah.
And then I think I was about 23 years old when things started shifting.
Yeah.
So I fell into this little routine. And what would happen is I would have a pretty cool job bartending.
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd get fired, and I'd have a pretty cool chick,
Yeah.
and then she'd get tired of my shit and she'd bounce.
Yeah.
And then, then I'd get a DUI or something, maybe a little fist fight,
Yeah.
end up back in jail.
Yeah.
I'd get out of jail, I'd crash on buddy's couch for a couple weeks and get another pretty good little job going,
Yeah.
get another little car going, get another cool girl. And then one by one it'd fall off again.
Yeah.
And this started happening around 23. And I mean, really this whole time, thing is I didn't drink to like enhance situations,
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. I drank to change the way that I felt
Yeah.
because
Easy
I was
comfort.
just so uncomfortable,
Yeah.
irritable, restless, and discontent.
Yeah.
And drinking at one point brought me peace, but at this point it had kind of stopped working.
Yeah.
And once that place was reached, I mean, really, it was more pathetic than anything else
Yeah.
because I could no longer escape the way that I felt.
Yeah.
I could no longer get rid of those feelings. So now I'm drunk. I'm under the influence.
And I feel like
shit.
The worst.
And it's like, that's a bad
That's a bad
I'm either
combination.
getting in a fist fight or I'm going to end up on your couch crying at the end of the night,
Yeah,
little
me-
ball.
me
And you
too,
don't know.
bro.
I don't get to choose. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it's more pathetic than
Yeah.
anything else. It
Yeah.
really is what happened. And so one of these days, I had just gotten out of jail. I was about 2 weeks out of jail. And I'd fallen in this routine. And while I was in jail, the girl I was with at that time, she left me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went and got a bottle of Southern Comfort
Oof.
and a couple of 40s
Yeah.
of King Cobra.
Oh man.
And I remember I was drinking the first one on my way home, thinking this probably isn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
But there's nothing I could do.
Yeah.
Like it was going. It was bigger than I was. I knew. I mean, I said it to myself, like, this is not a good idea. Well, I ended up getting into a fight that night. I ended up running from the cops.
Mm-hmm.
And I hid over there in between some orange groves, hiding
Yeah.
from the cops while I was nursing that bottle of Southern Comfort.
Yeah.
And I was trying to game plan, like, what's the next move?
Yeah.
And man, I couldn't go to her house because she got a new boyfriend. So I was like, fuck, and they live together, so I couldn't do that. I was going through like all my friends, and I just kind of burned every bridge.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm just gonna go off myself.
Wow.
And so I had my little car, and I was
Yeah.
gonna drive it up towards Big Bear and just drive off a cliff somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was putting the last bit of money I had in my gas tank.
Wow.
And as I was doing that, I looked over and I saw an AA club.
Yeah.
And as I had mentioned, I just got out of jail. So I was very spiritual.
Spiritual as fuck.
Anybody who's been in jail knows it's a spiritual place. I mean, there's more prayer in jail than there's in
Exactly.
church. Like people reading the Bible all over the place. So I didn't really have an issue with the God thing.
Word.
Never really did. And I was just kind of like, okay, if this is the path I'm supposed to be on, then I knew what it was because I got introduced to the program, to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and things like that, those 12-step programs when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
So
you always knew it was there.
Yeah, I got brought here on a court card.
Oh, yeah.
And and I remember like at that time, so I tell the story sometimes in meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 14 years old and I had this little court card and I was this little skater punk, dude.
Yeah.
Wife beater, dickies, sagging and shaved head, like just like this little Southern California
Yeah.
punk. Like that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I remember I was going to this meeting and it was down in this church basement. This is back when they used to smoke in meetings. Meetings would get so smoky, dude. Like I wouldn't be able to see your face, like as close as we're sitting. And there's this guy after the meeting, old guy. He's probably like my age now.
Yeah.
I was 14.
Old guy.
I mean, he might have been younger than me now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He might have been like in his 30s. I mean, he's an old dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, he looks at me, he goes, "You're young." And I look at him, I go, "You're old." And he started laughing.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, he's like, "Do you even want to stop like whatever you're doing, drinking, drugs,
Yeah.
whatever?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, look, we're not here to hold you hostage.
Yeah.
Give me your card. I'll sign it. You can go kick rocks and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so I did.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, right on. This old dude's cool.
He
you
gets
know,
it.
he gets it. And you know, so I kind of, you know, I knew what was going on as far as that went. What I didn't know is it was the trick.
Yeah.
Because at those AA clubs, there's always a meeting about to start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I said that prayer, it's like a setup. You know, what I mean? It's like, oh,
always a meeting
there's
about to
always a
start.
meeting about to start. You know, because they know there's people saying that prayer all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go in, I sit in the meeting, and this little lady's sharing, and she looks like a country clubber type. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't really think much, you know, and just thought, you know, I tried a few times here and there throughout that period. I came in maybe once, like 24, hung out for a little while. A few times throughout my life, I'd been, you know, I'd pop in because I needed to stop.
Yeah.
And this, you know, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna, you know, I'm just gonna sit here for like 10 minutes and leave.
Yeah.
And the words that came out of her mouth changed my life to this day.
Yeah.
This is probably the most important words I've ever heard in my life. Because if it wasn't for these words, I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
There's probably nothing else that anybody could have said. But she said, I drank until I wanted to die. And that's my long, boring war story.
Yeah.
And I was there at that point, at that moment.
Yeah.
And I just broke down, man. It just got me.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in the room.
There you go. Beautiful. So what inspired Jeremiah and I doing this is this book here. This book here, we're gonna hold it up. Be Here Now by Ram Dass. This is his first book, right?
Yeah.
This is his first book. So to preface, everybody knows I talk on the podcast about God constantly.
All right.
Constantly. It's just very natural to me. That's where my mind goes. That's the spiritual thing is I'm just inclined that way. That's the best thing that 12-step has given me is like a relationship and an understanding. You could talk to me for hours about how God doesn't exist and you wouldn't break through. I have full faith. But I was talking about, and I'll just tell you, I'm at this point, man, where I've done all this work and like footwork spiritually, the practical footwork, you know, from the Christian practical footwork of Bible study. Like, even though I'm not a Christian, I was able to like, and that's one thing, that's another thing 12-step has given me is like, I can hear shit I don't agree with and still hear things that I need to hear. So my son's mom was super Christian and she was like, let's go to church as a family. And I would go and I did a Bible study and I would, you know, go to church 4 days a week, do 2 different churches. And I would do the worship thing, hands in the air. And I would meditate every day, like sometimes multiple times a day, mindfulness. Like then I was doing meditation workshops and like meditating for like 2-3 hours at a time, nothing guided, nothing, just full and like full visualization, like visual trips, flotation, sensory deprivation tanks, full visuals in there, like haven't really going deep, dude. And I've hit this point recently where I want there's something more. There's another phase. And in this book, he talks about, in the first couple pages, he talks about I hit my academic stage, I hit my psychedelic phase, and then he hit I forgot the last phase, but that's the Ram Dass phase. And I think I've hit my like practicality phase. And I feel like there's another thing. And I when I saw you, I said, I'm looking for my Maharaji. And Maharaji is Ram Dass's guru and Krishna Das and all this whole group of dudes, you know, Maharaji, just for the listener, that's this major guru who's impacted so many people's lives. So I brought this up to Jeremiah and he told me about this book. Why did you tell me about this book? Explain to people, let's reiterate why you suggested this.
Well, so I believe that the truth is universal. And I think when you're awakened, you're awakened. I think from my experience and a lot of the work I've done with gurus and roshis and things like that, it's really them bringing you to the awareness that you already know.
Yeah.
You know, it's them just kind of helping you accept what you already know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that there is any kind of magic There's an old I'm not sure if it's a Taoist or a Buddhist saying, and it says, before man is enlightened, he chops wood and carries water.
Yeah.
And it says after man is enlightened, he chops wood and carries water.
Yeah.
You,
So
and the
yeah.
truth is that I believe that, like I said earlier, we all have a path. We all have a
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of that is service to others,
Yeah.
to help reduce suffering in this world, to help people find peace, unity, unification
Yeah.
with the truth, with the all.
Yeah.
And I think that work is probably here to
Yeah.
be done,
Yeah.
not on a mountaintop in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least my place.
Yeah.
And the thing is that God keeps putting things in my life and people in my life
Yeah.
that this is where I'm supposed to be,
For sure.
because this is where the work is.
Yeah.
This is where God has me.
For sure.
And I believe that that's all. That's the deal.
Yeah.
There really is no kind of. I don't know how to really put it.
No, you're
other
putting
than-
it
yeah,
perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's perfect
Yeah.
because we do this little meeting. It's not a AA meeting.
Mhm.
We're all a bunch of alcoholics who come to this meeting every week. But it's just like you can take quotes out of any literature that inclines you spiritually or intellectually, and you can bring it to the group, read the piece of literature, and then share on the piece of literature. And we did it last night, and this book just came in the mail, and I flipped it open, and I found this one passage, and what it talks about is La Lila Rasa. You've heard that before? It's the divine, the divine dance in Sanskrit, and he talks about that, and what it made me think was I want to go on this voyage, right? I want to go on this voyage, but I'm in the divine dance, and that's where I'm supposed to be right now. And you mentioned I'm going to tie this to something you said. I'm in the fatherhood dance, and I'm in the business owner dance, and I'm doing the dance of life, even the 12-step dance. I'm doing the dance, and I'm now trying to do it gracefully. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm tripping over my feet, but sometimes I'm flowing and in the flow of life. And right now, like today and yesterday and the day before that, generally 9 times out of 10, I'm in the flow of life. I get a little irritated here and there, but I'm in the dance. But something that you said was most of the gurus and the great thinkers, they do that in their 50s or they're in their 60s, and they're doing the great dance in their 20s and 30s and 40s, where they're raising children, they're Harvard professors, they're intellectuals. And that really stuck with me, because it's like that after reading that passage, it's like right now, I need to be in the dance. I need to be in the divine dance of life, in the flow of life. And this is where I need to be. So you're right. I need to be right here. I need to be right here in San Diego. I need to be right here with my children. Because I was saying that if I could just pack my shit up and go, if I didn't have children, I'd be gone already. We wouldn't have been able to have that conversation last week, because I would have been fucking out of here. But I do have those things, and that's part of the life I'm living, and that's what the work is here for me, like you just said.
And that's going to be part of your experience.
Yeah.
See, I had this thought a couple of years ago. So my story doesn't end there. So I didn't stay sober. I stayed sober for about 7 years from that point.
I wanted you to say it.
Now, during that time, I had met my ex-wife, and she had a son, and I didn't have children at that time. I didn't want children. So she had a son, and he was about 4 or 5 years old. And, and part of my journey was to go back out after 7 years. And, and it was just part of the path. And, there was nothing really dramatic that happened during that time. I didn't get arrested.
Yeah.
I didn't go homeless. I didn't break the family. None of that happened, but there was kind of this overall sense of just, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It was an unhappy existence.
Yeah.
I had gotten sober again, was sober just a few months. When my mother died, 2 weeks after, when my mother died, so when I got the phone call my mother died, it just so happens that that night that my mother died, my baby brother got arrested.
Oh shit. The baby brother I know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought about asking you if I should bring
Yeah,
him
you,
here.
you
would've
should have.
been
He's
pretty-
the fucking man.
that'd have been
Bro.
a good little.
You have a very cool
yeah.
younger brother.
So
I would kick it with him
yeah.
even if he wasn't in the program. I would fucking hang out with him. He's the man, bro.
So he was in jail, 22 years old when mom dies. He
Yeah.
got arrested that night. 2 weeks the day after my mother died, my ex-wife left me.
Whoa.
Yeah. So here I was with my entire world, just my truth was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Who I was, I no longer was
Mm-hmm.
from one day to the next.
Yeah.
You see, I had no rights to that child
Yeah.
who is now 15 years old, about to
Yeah.
be 16. See, I wasn't his father.
Yeah.
So I was no longer a father.
Yeah.
I was no longer a husband.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And my mom just died. And my
Yeah.
baby brother, who's 16 years younger than me, who I helped raise,
Yeah.
actually lived with me in my alcoholism when I was a bartender for 3
Yeah.
years because my mom was so fucked off.
Yeah.
And you know, so it had all just fallen down, a complete moment of just everything. Who am I now? Where do
Yeah.
I go from here? What's, and a lot of pain,
Yeah.
a very, very dark place.
Yeah.
As a result of the practice
Yeah.
and Alcoholics Anonymous
Yeah.
and time and the path and the
Yeah.
journey, I've been able to find peace,
Yeah.
happiness, contentment, and I wouldn't change a thing. You see, I've had
Yeah.
all the experiences a man could have.
Yeah.
I raised a family.
Yeah.
I was a husband.
Yeah.
I did that chapter,
Yeah.
and that was a part of my experience. Just like the
Yeah.
bartending. I mean, that was fun. I had a blast.
Yeah.
Just like the stealing houses in high school.
Yeah.
This is all kind of, when it's going on, it's not always fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a lot of dark areas during all those times.
Yeah.
It wasn't always good. As a matter of fact, most of the time it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Most of the time it was probably some kind of drama, some kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
But I believe that I've had a lot of the experiences that a man could want,
Yeah.
and that's the path that you're on.
Thanks.
That's what
man.
you're doing.
Yeah, that something that you have is, and it's probably just being on the path is the wisdom that you have. That's what I like. I want to get to the point where I, because I'm already pretty wise, I'm going to get attached to this as pretty wise. Like, I think it's perfect. I'm like kind of wise, so I'm already there. But like, what I love about you is you have a natural levity about you. And like when you speak, even though you've only been sober a little bit, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long you've been sober. When you speak, people are like this. People are like, what is this motherfucker going to say? Because you're going to guide people. And I don't know if you do that. That when you speak, and anytime I've seen you speak, people are like, okay, he's going to take me somewhere. In 3 minutes, he's going to take me somewhere.
I think it's the mustache.
You think it's the mustache? No, it's not the fucking mustache. It's you, man. It's you. There's something in the way that you speak, and people who listen to this podcast will hear it throughout you telling your story. That, like, I know I have friends who listen, and they're gonna say, as soon as this podcast started, I was caught, and they're gonna listen to the end. They're gonna say, he took me somewhere, and you do that, dude.
Great.
And you have, and I want that, and I'll get there. I'm in my father phase. I'm in my businessman phase, but that's what I want, man. And I want to acknowledge you for that.
And through all that will be ups and downs and a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And there may be moments where, like I said, it was all gone.
Yeah.
And here I was, and I wanted to die again.
Yeah.
Every day. And I waited for it. And I postponed it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to kill myself today.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. And I wake up tomorrow, I want to die.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to kill myself. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it was just rough. It was a big rough spot, and I just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
I found some peace and relief in meditation
Yeah.
at that time, but it was I wasn't getting a lot of relief.
Yeah.
It was an experience that I had to have. I had to go to that
Yeah.
low spot.
Yeah. There's that Viktor Frankl quote that
Mhm.
I'm gonna audition for a TED Talk, and I'm going
Mhm.
to have that quote be the like premise of the TED Talk. But he talks about everyone has suffering, and it's their unique suffering. It's yours. It's everyone's unique suffering. No one can steal that suffering from you. It is yours to carry, it's yours to walk with. It is universally yours. And what the opportunity is how you bear the burden of your suffering,
Mm.
and by you walking through it, that's how you got to bear it. And that's why you're pretty fucking wise. Like the way you've walked through your suffering with, at least it seems like you've had some grace. And if you didn't kill yourself, you walked through it decently well. Because my first 4 years of recovery, I wanted to die every day. I'm dual diagnosis, so there's that. But I was also a dry alcoholic with no solution. Like I was telling you, I couldn't perceive like what people were talking about. I was just so smoked out the game, And I wanted to die every day, but that was necessary suffering for me to be able to speak on a microphone, like, and for people to pay me to do the things that I do. They're paying for those years. They're paying for those years of bearing my burden and walking with it and carrying it. And you carried yours and you walked with it, and it led you to it doesn't matter how long you've been sober. You just have it's like you seem to have an innate understanding that it resonates with me. That's
Mm.
how you project. I don't know if you feel that. Do you feel like that in your head, or
No.
no?
No.
No.
I'm just a regular guy, man.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with that suffering now. So I believe that that's a spiritual truth. That's a spiritual part of the journey.
Absolutely.
And in every major religion out
Four
there,
Noble Truths. Yeah.
there is suffering and surrender.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
Definitely.
There's the stuff, and that's the way it has to be. That is
Yeah.
part of the experience of anybody who's spiritually evolved.
Definitely.
I saw, Eckhart Tolle had his on his bed, waking up in the middle of the night, full of depression, wanting to die.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
When he had his spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So I think that
It's
is
a rite of passage. Yeah.
Yes, that is a rite of passage.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That is something, and it ebbs and it flows.
Yeah.
In reality, throughout all this, another one of those truths are that I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
You
Be
know?
here now. You slamming on the
Right.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
right here right now, and I had that epiphany after sitting for hours
Yeah.
in a meditation,
Yeah.
and it was, God touched me and told me I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Definitely.
Everything is the way it's supposed to be. Everything is and as a matter of fact, there was nothing you could do about it. You couldn't have changed it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You couldn't go back with everything you know now and
Yeah.
make things any different. You don't have any control over it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the root cause of a lot of my suffering
Yeah.
is when I'm trying to control. And so for those of you who are in this thing and you are in a 12-step fellowship, so in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about the great obsession of every alcoholic is to control and enjoy his drinking.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think the great obsession of every sick person is to control and enjoy. It may be sex.
Yeah.
It may be relationships.
Yeah. Check.
It may
check,
be
check.
it may be the bank account.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to control and enjoy the bank account
Yeah.
instead of, and that's, we all, and it's that fight. It's that fight against control, that separation, that ego.
Yeah.
Going back to that child.
Yeah.
I'm not enough unless I get another zero in
Yeah.
there. I'm not enough unless that girl
Yeah.
wants me. I'm not enough unless, it's that same thing.
Until.
So I had to give up the control 100%. And the truth is There's another line in that book, and it says that we were under the delusion that we could wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this life if only we managed well.
If only we manage. If only I manage well, dude. That line alone. Even if you're not an alcoholic, if only you manage well, will X, Y, and Z happen? And I tell people you can't control most things, even normal people, like coaching people. I coach people. I do other side work with. It's if only you can manage well. Usually gets me in trouble if I'm moving people around like chess pieces. I end up fucking losing the game every time, man. Yeah.
So, and it says rest, satisfaction, and happiness. Now here's my experience. This is my experience. I get sober at 26. I didn't know how I didn't realize how young I was.
Yeah.
I felt a lot older.
Yeah.
And but I had this idea of what life should look like.
Yeah.
What all those things, what the wife should look like.
Yeah.
What the family unit should look like, where I should live.
Yeah.
What the bank account should look like. I'm one of those, I'm the type of guy who goes and buys a brand new truck, and then I get home and I start looking at other trucks. All right. It's never enough. It's always the next thing.
Yeah.
It's always that one's gonna, if I just had this, if I just had that. I'm the guy who shows up to the party and 5 minutes later I'm looking for the next party.
Yeah.
That's just
where are we going after?
That's just how I always rolled. And I'm also really insecure.
Yeah.
And I'm full of fear.
Yeah.
And so what that means is I have a great work ethic because I'm afraid not to work really hard, not to just get in there and push and try, manage well.
Yeah.
And so at 7 years sober, I had that. The bank account looked the way I thought it should look.
Yeah.
And the wife was sleeping in the bed, and the kids down the hallway. And we got a 3-bedroom house right at the beach.
Yeah.
2 nice cars in the driveway. And I was miserable and wanted to die and drink again.
Yeah.
With everything I wanted, that little wish list.
Yeah.
I was told early on in sobriety, my first year, make a list of what you want your life to look like.
Yeah.
I had it.
You had all.
I had it, and miserable.
Yeah.
So here's what it comes down to is that I don't know what's going to bring me satisfaction, happiness.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to bring me that contentment, fulfillment.
Yeah.
So that means that I simply trust the universe. I trust God.
Yeah.
And I suit up and I show up. I put my butt in the seat and I do what's in front of me.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Definitely.
And it's not necessarily something I wanted to do.
For sure.
And when I do that, when I suit up and show up and I get my desires out of the way, my desire to control and manipulate and manage well, when I get that out of the way and I get my idea out of what that bank account should look like, my bank account is fine. There's always money there to be taken care of. And I get my ideas out of the way of what my relationship should look like. I end up in an amazing relationship and enjoying myself and enjoying my time. When I get my ideas out of the way of what this should look like, I seem a lot more fulfilled and content.
Yeah. Feel you, dog. I tell people that when they're creating their dreams, or their declarations, their vision, and I've talked about it on here. And I've had to learn this through my own business journey, especially, if a couple years ago, like 4 years ago, I just wanted to be a personal trainer. That's what I wanted to be a personal trainer with a full schedule. And like, if you gave me that, I would have fucking made it. And now I'm like traveling, doing interventions and, auditioning for a TED Talk and doing all this fucking stuff that I like. If you told me to write this down at 23 when I got here, I sold myself short, But one thing I'm grateful for is I had a lot of nothing for many years sober. I did a lot of broke time sober. I did a lot of suffering sober. And what I had to learn was to be content. I would call it contentment without contingencies. Like, no job, My lady hates me. Like, my friends are, I have no friends really. I'm antisocial. I can't leave my house. And I had to find contentment within all of that. Otherwise, I was going to kill myself. I had to like search. And that was in that first spiritual year of like that grind I was in. I wrote a lot of poems about it, and I did a lot of speaking about it, like finding contentment without like the variables, right? Like if then I will be, if then I will be, if then I will be, and I had to just fucking demolish that, dude. I had to demolish that. And I was thinking about that as you're speaking, because I'm losing that right now. Because you're talking about the bank account, and I'm watching my bank account, and I'm thinking when I get to the X, Y, and Z, I'll be. And I it's so easy to forget. It's so we so conveniently forget like the pain and suffering of anything. Like, and I think that's from how my alcoholism manifests is I have an easy forgetter. You hear, like it's convenient for me to just, forget the lessons I've learned in the trenches. And when life's going well, I just chuck it out of the window and I create my own rules, and that's why, like, for me, going to fucking India, I just wanted to go humble myself. I just want to be a devotee. And I could be a devotee right here. I can be a Das right here. You know what I mean? I can do that right in San Diego and just be a servant to the people around me, and be devoted to the people around me. So, man, good conversation.
And I think that's the thing, is to realize you're already there.
I'm already there.
You're already there. There
already
is
there.
this is the destination.
Yeah.
This is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's all right. It's what Eckhart Tolle talks about. It's what Ram Dass talks about. It's what the Christ talked about.
Yeah.
The Father of Heaven, the heaven's not in the stars, within you.
It's within you. Yeah. Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah. Matt, how are we doing on time? How easy was that?
All right, we're good.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
We're gonna wrap it up there. But yeah, if you're listening, watch the podcast, rate, subscribe, share. This is a dope ass conversation. So easy. So easy. But we appreciate you. And until the next time.
Yeah, I appreciate having me on.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, bro.